All right, all right. How is everybody? Nice, nice. We are hitting the pause button just for this week. Well, last week, I guess, too, because we had the night of worship. But this week and last week, hitting the pause button on the Romans series. So next week, we're going to hit Romans chapter 4. Sorry, my iPad. There's a little bit of a hustle and bustle today. So next week, we're going to hit Romans chapter 4, and then we'll keep trucking all the way to chapter 16. So if you didn't know, today we sent our middle schoolers off to middle school camp, which is awesome. I think that's like thus my presence singing on a microphone. So, but shout out to Denali and Alec and Heritage. I literally texted Denali last night, I think at like 11:30. Someone was like, dude, what are the chances? And he's like, let me see if I can get off work early. So shout out to those guys for hopping in and working through the punches. And we had one system where we were still going to have tracks going. Yeah, we were going to have tracks going and everything. And then it just didn't want to work, you know. Peter, who's at middle school camp, got it all set up. And then it decided it didn't want to work. And it did work earlier today, which was really weird. But as I pull up this message, we're going to be sitting, or this whole message, there's going to be a lot of different verses that I pulled in, but we're going to be sitting a lot on the idea of John chapter 10, verse 10. And it should be up on the screen here. I got a slide for it, unless that also didn't want to work. Yes. So I pulled up two different versions for you guys. Work, iPad, work. All right, so there's two. They're the same verse, but two different versions. So the first one is NIV, and it says, the thief comes only to steal and kill and destroy. I have come that they may have life and have it to the full. And I like the New King James Version, just maybe a touch better. I think the wording's a little bit better. And it says, the thief does not come the thief does not come except to steal and to kill and to destroy. I have come that they may have life and that they may have it more abundantly. And I think sometimes in our society, in our life, or whatever it is, we can skewer this verse just a little bit. I think it's easy to do because when it comes to finances, it can be a little tricky in the spiritual side because it's not bad to have money. Like it's a necessity. It's a resource, right? Things cost money. Back in the Old Testament times, right? If you read through the Old Testament, you see a lot of sacrificing of animals and crops and things like that. But now, not everybody is a farmer. Am I right? You get a paycheck, you get cash, like you provide a service and you get money for it. So now we tithe 10% of that paycheck because that is our main resource. In the Old Testament, you trade and barter and all that stuff. We don't really do that anymore. So that's why we say 10% of your finances. But I think it's easy for us to get it skewed because it is a necessity. It is something that you need. But I think sometimes we can get so focused on the idea that we need money that we will then put it above God. And that's where it becomes dangerous. When you get so concerned and so worried about money that you put it above God. And I've had all of my grandparents have since passed away. I'm 36, it's not unusual. And I've seen a couple times where the money that's left over from the grandparent, people go crazy over. And I remember one time talking to my wife after one of my grandparents passed away and just being like, you know, if when my parents go, which I hope is a long, long time from now, if when my parents go, if they leave us something, if somebody wants to snake that money from us, let them have it. They clearly need it more than us. Like, I am not going to try so hard to get what's mine that I'm going to like kill myself over. You know what I mean? Like, just let them have it. God will provide for us. It's what's going to happen. But it's just easy for us, I think, in today's society to put getting money first, or at least like even like right up in there. I think we just start getting in real dangerous territory when we do that. But the reality is, if you put God above everything that you do, if you put him first in every single aspect. Tonight, we're talking specifically finances, but think of this in every single aspect of your life. If you put God above everything that you do, he will take care of everything that you need. Now, don't get me wrong. I'm not up here trying to preach a prosperity gospel to you guys. That's not what I'm about. I'm not up here saying that if you tithe $100, you're going to get $200 in return. Park Valley is not the stock market, okay? That's not how it works. I'm not here to give you investing advice. I probably shouldn't give you investing advice. But what I'm saying is he's going to take care of your needs. Now let's check out this chunk of scripture. It's Matthew chapter 6, 25 through 34. I only put the reference in your notes because it's kind of longer, but it is up on the screen here. And this is Jesus talking at the Sermon on the Mount. He says, therefore I tell you, Do not worry about your life, what you will eat or drink, or about your body, what you will wear. Is not life more than food, and the body more than clothes? Look at the birds of the air. They do not sow or reap or store away in barns, and yet your heavenly Father feeds them. Are you not much more valuable than they? Can any of you, by worrying, add a single hour to your life? And why do you worry about clothes? See how the flowers of the field grow? They do not labor or spin, yet I tell you that not even Solomon in all his splendor was dressed like one of these. If that is how God clothes the grass of the field, which is here today and is thrown into the fire, he will not much more clothe you, you of little faith. So do not worry, saying, what shall we eat, or what shall we drink, or what shall we wear? For the pagans run after all these things, and your heavenly Father knows that you need them. But seek first his kingdom and his righteousness, and all these things will be given to you as well. Therefore, do not worry about tomorrow, for tomorrow will worry about itself. Each day has enough trouble of its own. And I wanted to look at this verse. This has been a big verse just in my life as a whole. When I was younger, I used to look at this verse, and I would always hang on the line, do not worry about tomorrow. That's what I would hang on. It's like, we don't need to be stressing out, like God's got tomorrow taken care of. And that's very true. But as I got older and money started playing a bigger factor in my life, you get the big boy paycheck, the big girl paycheck, whatever that looks like, you start having more conversations around it. I mean, thank the Lord I had some great mentors in my life like Kevin Kiak, who would just sit down and chat finances with me and ideas and all this crazy. I've even ran some crazy ideas past Brett a few times, just to be like, dude, could this work? Could this work? So I used to always hang on that worry part. And I think that's true. God's going to take care of it. But then I was reading through it maybe like a year ago, and I started just really noticing that like God's telling us like, don't worry about the clothes that you got. Like to me it started translations like, don't worry about being the best dressed. Don't worry about having the name brand stuff. And it went from like, don't worry about it because those things are expensive to like, don't worry about it because God literally doesn't care. The things that you have are not going to qualify or disqualify you from a relationship with Jesus. He will never look at you and be like, well, maybe if you wore a suit once or twice on Sunday, Like that's not the case. I mean, if you look throughout the New Testament, like the miracles that Jesus performed, I mean, there's one guy who's got he's blinded and stuff all over his eyes. And these people were considered unclean people, right? So they would have to walk through the streets yelling unclean. Like that guy probably stunk to high heavens. And Jesus just gets down there and he heals him. Everybody else is trying to avoid this guy. Jesus goes to the guy. And that's time and time again where Jesus is constantly going to the person that's not the best dressed, that's not the highest class, that's probably smelly and weird and unusual. I mean, Peter was a fisherman. That guy smelled funky. Just the fish alone, he could have been well bathed. He still would have smelled funky. At Park Valley, I used to work kind of in a closet. And yeah, it happens. You run out of office spaces and you convert an area. So I the whole student ministry crew, we were in an office. It wasn't well ventilated because it was supposed to be a closet. And so, got a little muggy in there, a little smelly. And I would come home literally just from Park Valley. And my wife would be like, you just smell odd. And I'm like, look, when you got high school boys and middle school boys hanging out in the office, things are going to start smelling like a wet Cheeto, okay? That's just, this is why we need to be praying for our leaders at middle school camp, okay? Them boys. I kid you not. This is a tangent. I was leading a cabin one year at high school camp. I hadn't even gone in the cabin yet. I had my duffel bag, and I walked in with my group, and I'm like, why does it already stink? What did you guys do in the 10 minutes you've been in this cabin? This is ridiculous. And then the trouble with middle school boys is, so my young adult fellas, counsel the middle school boys in this. Axe body spray. It's not deodorant. It's not. It's basically a perfume, right? So, but middle school boys don't know that. They're like, oh, it makes you smell nice. It's you still need deodorant, okay? Get you some Dove. When I was doing middle school ministry, I handed a stick of deodorant to a middle schooler one time. I was like, look, I tried to be discreet. I was like, look, man, you're a little ripe. Okay? Go to the bathroom, put this on. I actually used to, I need to re-up my backpack stash, but I used to carry spray deodorant in my backpack. One for me, but the beautiful thing about spray deodorant is if you come across one of your homies that's maybe a little stinky, you just walk up to him very discreetly and be like, hey, go put this on. You know what I mean? I hope none of you guys ever tolerate if I smell. I want you to tell me. Let me know. My desire is not to smell. Tangent over. But looking at this verse, God does not care about the things that you wear. He's going to provide your needs. And so think about, what is a need? You need shelter. You do not need a 10-bedroom house. You need food. And despite my lunch today, you do not need Chick-fil-A for every meal. Okay? Believe it or not, I know we say it's Christian chicken and the calories don't count. They do. I've learned this the hard way. But think about like a necessity versus a need. And I can tell you that like sometimes I almost take this to an extreme, right? Because people will be like, Zach, how are you going to, like, I don't know if I should use this example. I'm not going to do it. It's going to like gross everybody out. I know, now I have to. All right. Back in the toilet paper shortage. All right. Well, I'll keep it discreet, clean, if you will. Everybody was freaking out about toilet paper, right? And they're like, oh no, what are we going to do with no toilet paper? I'm like, look, there are other ways to make this happen. You have showers, you have bathtubs. Like, everybody's freaking out. I'm like, you know what? We either get it or we don't. Like, I'm not going to be the guy who tackles an old lady at Walmart for the last roll of toilet paper. I'm not going to do it. All right? I will find another way. So, like, look at what is a need and what is a want. And, like, you can nitpick it too. And I think it's good to do that because now you're looking at what is a need and what is a blessing in my life. I mean, who am I kidding? The reality is, like, if you have the basic necessities of life, that is a huge blessing in itself because there are other places in the world that don't have clean running water just available at any moment in their house. Yet we do. Or I don't know all of you personally, but maybe 99.99% of us have clean running water in our house. And so that's what this verse is talking about. It's not talking about, hey, I'm going to make you rich or anything like that. It's just saying that, like, God is going to provide the things that you need. And I, like, even when I was having children, we have two now, two wonderful daughters. I know. Kit is so cute. She'll be crying in the morning, right? And as soon as you open the door, she's like already posing. Her little gums are showing. She don't got teeth yet, you know? Anyway, sorry. But I don't even know where I was going with that. Oh, to having children. I'm all over the place today. There was a lot happening with pretty much everyone being at middle school camp. Before me and Catherine had kids, I always thought that I wanted sons. Right? Maybe it's because like it was me and my brother growing up, you know, and I was like, it would be great to have sons. Like, I just want to take this little guy and just like chuck him across the living room. You know what I'm saying? Like I want to roughhouse with these guys. I want to teach them how to play football and just like lay them out so they know that they're not the biggest, toughest guy on the block until they become bigger than me. But like I was so excited for this. And then I used to always joke around and I would be like, people were like, what, like, are you praying for a boy or a girl? I'm like, I'm not. I'm just praying for a healthy kid because if I pray that I want a boy, I'm going to get a girl. Like, that's how God works. You know what I'm saying? And, and I was like, obviously I'm going to love whatever comes out, you know? And so after we had Maisie, I don't know, like my mind shifted and I wasn't so much in the mindset of like, God plays this funny joke on you that if you want a boy, you get a girl. If you want a girl, you get a boy. I think God gives you what you need. Even when it comes to kids. And it's hard to describe. Like, I don't know if Josh maybe has this. I'm just trying to follow in Josh's footsteps, you know. Maybe not like 10 daughters. Maybe, you know, I'll stick with the 2. But, but like, I don't know. I think there was a piece of me that needed daughters. You know, like I understand that I'm the parent, I'm the caregiver, like I'm going to provide for them, I'm going to be there for them. But there was like a piece of me, like when I had this daughter, got like really, really excited. And it was like, man, like I want to teach her to love Jesus. I want to teach her to not care about what everybody else thinks and to just follow after Christ. Like these are the things I want to teach her and to be bold about those things. Like I want her to be adventurous and silly and goofy and weird, like all of these things. Like, I don't know, I just got excited about it. And it was a part of me that I didn't even know existed yet. But it's like I wanted boys, but God looked at me, he's like, no, man, you need daughters. So as much as my kid needs me, I think I needed that in my life as well. I don't know if that makes any sense. It's so weird to explain the feeling you have for your child to people who don't have children. And I heard that my whole life. So the best way I can describe it is basically that like I remember a time before we had kids, obviously. It wasn't that long ago. Maisie's 4. But it doesn't feel like there was a time where Maisie wasn't around. So I don't know if that makes sense. Like, it feels like she's always been with me. She's like a part of me. But anyway, so somebody's calling me right now, and it's so distracting. Some guy from Pakistan, I think. I don't know. The name was Evangelist Raymond. Who is that? And he sent him to TJ. He's our missionary guy, outreach pastor. I don't know. Maybe I should have answered it. Oh man, I'm like way off the rails right now. So let's get back. We'll get back on this string, on this topic here of finances. I think it's important for us to do the best that we can do with the things that we have been given. And sometimes you want like a ton of leadership and you want a ton of responsibility and all this stuff, but are we willing to do the best that we can do with the little bit that we get before we get a big bit? And if you look at this verse, 1 Corinthians chapter 10, verse 31, it says, "Therefore, whether you eat or drink or whatever you do, do all to the glory of God." And I take this verse seriously when it comes to my finances. Why do I want to be good with my money? Well, it's because everything I do can bring glory to God. It can open up a huge ministry door that I can simply, and I've done it before, where like I've sat down with people and be like, here's the spreadsheet that I use. Like people will pay for these services to have somebody sit there and go through their finances. I'm sitting here, I'm like, let me just do it with you. Like, here's the spreadsheet that I use. Let me lay everything out for you. Let's go through your expenses. Where are you spending your most money, right? And part of it is like I kind of nerd out about finances a little bit. I do enjoy that. But it's a huge ministry opportunity to take someone who is struggling and feeling like they can't make ends meet and to have somebody else come in and breathe a little bit of fresh air into it to kind of overhaul things a little bit for them. Like, that is a huge ministry opportunity in itself. And you can take that same principle and apply it to every other area of your life. Why do you want to work your job the best that you can possibly work it? It's because it's going to open up doors for people to ask you about Jesus. And I've seen it happen in my own life. Like when I was working at Food Lion, I was a bagger. So my job was like scrub the toilets. They'd be like, clean up on aisle 5. I'd be running out there with a mop bucket. You know what I'm saying? But like I worked hard. I did the best that I could do. My first shift, I made those bathrooms sparkle. And I came in the next day. I had like a night shift and then like a morning shift. And my manager was like, Zach, did you clean the bathrooms last night? And I'm like, yeah. She's like, I don't think they've ever been that clean. And I'm like, it's alarming if I'm the one who can get your bathrooms that clean. You know what I'm saying? Like, I just took some stuff, I rubbed it on there, and made, shiny things shiny again. Like, I actually disinfected the toilet seats. The guy who trained me just took some toilet paper and like wiped it on the seat. And I'm like, man, we got like Clorox out here. Like, you got to disinfect that stuff. You know what I'm saying? But it got to the point where I was at Food Lion. Like, when you work with coworkers, they will just naturally ask you stuff about you. It's a normal part of life. Like, oh, what are you doing? For me, I was in college. Like, where are you going to school? I'm like, well, I go to Liberty University. Like, oh, what are you going there for? I was like, youth ministry. And I think they wanted to ask me questions about myself because I worked so hard, because I was fun to work with. Literally, it got to the point where I had one of my coworkers was like, Zach, do you enjoy what you do? And I looked at her, I'm like, no. She's like, what? And I'm like, would you enjoy cleaning the bathroom after like a code brown? No. I don't know why this is the direction I'm going tonight. It is, for you newbies out there, this is not normal. Sometimes it is. It's not normally. We're going to get back to Romans next week. It's going to be great. I've yet to talk about Brett. But like I had a good attitude and I worked hard and I had fun with the people around me. And those things opened up conversations. Like, I literally would be on my break having a conversation about God with my manager. And she prompted it. I didn't, like, walk in on my break to whoever's in the break room and be like, all right, guys, let's open up your Bibles, Like, they probably would have just cleared out. Like, I just sat in there and I started eating my fudge rounds, And they were like, hey, Zach, what do you think about this current event? And I'd be like, oh, let me tell you what I think. Or like just simply being respectful when I disagreed with somebody. They'd be like, oh, well, I think X, Y, and Z. I'd be like, I don't know, I just disagree. Sometimes people would be like, what? Why? And I would explain myself. But it was all these avenues of me just working hard, doing the best that I could possibly do that opened up conversations about God. Now, when it comes to your finances, I'm not saying you got to be rich. I'm not saying you have to be perfect at your finances. All I'm saying is you got to try. And even if you try and you fail, I think that will also send a message to people about the gospel in a good way. The fact that you try and you struggle and you get back up and you try again, and where most people feel defeated, your strength and your endurance comes from Christ. It doesn't come from the things of the world. It doesn't come from somebody telling you thank you. It comes from Jesus himself. So they're going to look at you and be like, why do you keep going? Why do you keep trying so hard? And then you have an opportunity to share the gospel with somebody. So we're talking specific about finances today, but this applies in every other avenue of your life. If you're in school, work hard in school. Do the best that you can possibly do. I'm not saying you have to pull an A to be a good representation of Jesus, but if you lay everything on the table and you pull a hard D, hang it up on your fridge. I did it one time with a paper. I was proud of that paper. My professor was like, you didn't use a commentary in your commentary. I'm like, I thought that was the point. And I took that D and I hung it up on the fridge. I was like, I'm proud of that D. Like, just do everything you do to the best of your ability. You don't have to be perfect. You don't have to succeed at everything even. But when you try and you work hard, that's going to share the gospel with people. Now, we're going to shift gears slightly and go into budgeting. We're going to talk some strategies, all right? So I put these, they're on the back of your sermon notes, kind of my basic strategies of setting up a budget or getting your budget under control. If you're in a place and you don't have a full-time paycheck, maybe some of you don't have a job, it's still good to apply these principles with what you do have, because the more you get organized now, while maybe you have a safety net of living in your parents' house, the better you can see how it works. It's always better to start early. It's the same thing with the earlier you can open up a retirement fund and start putting money into, the more money you'll have when you actually go to retire versus waiting until you're 30 or whatever. Anyway, the first thing, if me and you were sitting down one-on-one at this table, the first thing I would want you to do is to dream when it comes to your budget. What are the things that you want? Do you want to own a house? Do you want to buy a car? Are you just trying to move out and get an apartment? Do you want to take a vacation once a year? What are the things that you want to do in life? It's going to look different for every person, but think about it. All right? That's step one. Dream. Write those things down. Get you a notebook. You can steal a Summit notebook. It's not stealing because they're free. It's like taking a balloon on Free Balloon Day. It's totally fine. All right? But get a notebook and just write down the things you want. I want to buy a house. Don't even put a timeline on it yet. Just I want to buy a house. All right? And then step two is you want to organize it. And this is where you're going to create the budget. All right? And I have an example for you guys. This is actually what I use. The next slide. This is, I don't know. Someone's probably already named this. I've named this zero-based budgeting. All right, so what you're looking at, everything on the left is just a label, right? So you have expenses towards the bottom. That's your mortgage, rent, HOA, condo, home repair, upgrade. Above that, you have your income, job one, job two, whatever the case is. You would adjust it as you see fit. And then what I do is you see deposit money into. So when me and Catherine get paid, that money goes into our main checking account. You can think of it as like a reservoir, right? You put water into this reservoir. And then what we do is you see mortgage and rent, the money goes into an account that I've labeled mortgage and housing. So for me, every expense that I have has an account assigned to it. So when I set up my mortgage payment, I didn't give them the checking and routing number of my main checking account that our money pours into, but rather I gave them the checking and routing number to the account that my mortgage gets taken out of. And then we get paid on the 1st and the 15th here at Park Valley. But what I do then is I label when the due date is. Some of those things, we'll talk about in a second why this is like 1st and 15th or whatever. But So what I do is on the 15th, when we get paid, half of everything we need to survive for the month gets taken out. And it goes into its little buckets, right? I have auto transfers set up in my bank, all that great stuff. So it goes from the main reservoir into all of its little buckets. And then on the 1st, when we get paid again, the second half of that mortgage payment, making the mortgage payment full, goes into the mortgage bucket, fills that bucket up, and then the mortgage payment gets sent out. Does that make sense? So you take everything, it lands into one checking account. It gets, for me, auto-distributed. You can do it manually into all the different checking accounts. And for me, the reason why I set this up this way is because I'm an out-of-sight, out-of-mind kind of person. Anybody else? If you don't see it, it doesn't exist. Yeah, literally just now, as I'm talking about it, I just remembered that I have lunch in the fridge upstairs that I went and got Chick-fil-A anyway. But I put it in the fridge and forgot that it existed. Part of me maybe just wanted Chick-fil-A. But that's why I set it up this way, because when I only had 2 checking accounts, like a lot of people do, I had my main checking account, and then I had a bill pay checking account. So I would just take all the money that I'm supposed to have, I would shift it into the bill pay, but then I would mess it up all the time because you have pending transactions, things didn't clear fast enough, maybe I thought they cleared, but they didn't clear, and it would be this big jumbled up mess in one checking account, and I would overdraft all the time. And if you overdraft, one of 2 things is going to happen. One, either the transaction will get declined altogether, which is maybe not great when you're trying to make rent. Or 2, you get hit with a good old $25 overdraft fee. So now you're paying $25 or more simply because you spent too much money. And so when I was looking at the church and how we operate our finances, how everything was categorized into these different things. And when I spent something, I had to take my receipt, and now, thank the Lord, we used to make an expense report thing. I would take a picture of it on my phone with the app, and I categorize it, and that gets sent to Brett and his team. And then I remember looking at this and being like, why can't my personal finances work the exact same way? And it can. And so that's what I did. But this is the plan, and this is the organization side of it. So anytime you see something that says like 1st and 15th, like home repair and upgrade, that's because it's not a bill that's coming in. That's me saving for home repair and upgrades on a monthly basis. Same thing with car repair and purchase, 1st and 15th. I save monthly on a regular basis. This is not how much I actually make, so just know that. I just put numbers and then made it work on the budget. That should probably be a disclaimer. But anyway, you take car repair and purchase, and you budget for it monthly so that when your car breaks down, you're not like, oh no, where am I going to get this money from? But you have this account that's been building. And then from there, actually keeping a high yield savings account, which is maybe a whole other talk for another time because you gain a little bit of interest on it more than your bank savings account, which is probably like 0.001%, right? Anyway, so when I go into a car dealership, they're like, how come you don't want to buy these warranties? I'm like, well, instead of paying you monthly, I pay myself monthly, and then I have more control over where I spend this money or how I do the repair or anything like that. So I budget monthly for unplanned expenses, if that makes sense. And if you scan that QR code, it's going to take you to an intake form. And all it is you say like, hey, I would like this. And I'll just send it to you. So you put in your name and your email, and I'll send you this spreadsheet, and you can modify it however you want to modify it and all that good stuff. Yeah, and that's how I work it. But the way I do it is, if you notice at the bottom, if you can see it, between my income and my expenses on a monthly basis, I make sure it all comes out to 0. And I even have an item that's called extra cushion. Whew. So typically, if I have more income than what I do expenses, I'll put it into extra cushion, and I'll allocate it wherever I see fit. Maybe that's vacation fund, maybe that's car repair and purchase, an unplanned expense or something like that happens. You know, your dog needs surgery, whatever the case is. So what I do every month is I go in and I make sure that everything comes out to 0. Now, I plan for savings, okay? Not all of these are expenses. You want to save for the rainy day. You want to save for when your car breaks down. When you get a house, you want to save for when your hot water heater goes out and you don't want to take cold showers anymore, right? You need to save for those things. You just do it on a monthly basis, so it's not all of a sudden, boom, here's a $4,000 bill, but rather you've been tucking away money for a potential expense at any point in time. So anyway, and then at the bottom of that form, I also put an idea of if you want to sit down with me and talk about it more, we can do that too. Or you can just say, I don't want to do that. I just want the form. That's cool. Number 3, if we go to the next slide, is execution. So you've dreamed. You've budgeted, you organized it, you have the plan sitting right in front of you. If you're a football person, this is like, what do you want your team to do? How do you beat the other team? You're in the rooms, like the film rooms, you're coming up with all the game plans and stuff, but now you got to go out on the field and do it. This is a scary part, especially if you're like overhauling your finances altogether. This can be a little bit intimidating sometimes. So this is the part where you're actually going to go in and see if your bank even lets you make as many free checking accounts as you could possibly want. By the way, if you have Apple Federal Credit Union, you can, because that's what I use. I don't know if I get a little bonus for mentioning. I should have thought of that ahead of time. But you want to go out, you want to execute it. You want to start setting up your things to send out of these individual checking accounts, right? That's the execution side. And then the last thing that you got to do, number 4, is you got to stay disciplined, because that'd be difficult, right? Like, what happens come like the 3rd week of the month, and you've eaten out so many times, you've eaten through all the fun money account that you've set aside to just have fun. That's okay to have fun too. And your friends hit you up and be like, hey, Buffalo Wild Wings? That's where it gets hard to stay disciplined. That's where it gets difficult. Because you either now have to do like one of two things. One, you have to tell your friends, hey, I can't do it. And I found that if you're just honest with people, they're pretty understanding. Like, hey, I can't go out to eat. We already went through all of our fun money, so we're done. We're done eating out. Or you got to figure out where to take that money from. Because let's say you go to Buffalo Wild Wings and spend $20 on your meal, and now your budget, instead of being nice and green at the bottom at 0, it's now going to be red because you're $20 over your budget. So now you have to pull that $20 from somewhere else. And maybe that's $20 from the vacation that you've been trying to take. Maybe it's $20 from your grocery budget. And now because you wanted to eat out one time, you got to eat tuna fish out of a can or whatever the case is. I mean, I'm not trying to knock tuna fish. It's not a bad choice. It's pretty, put a little mayonnaise in there. So, it could be delicious. But you don't want to do that for every meal. Maybe you want to get a rotisserie chicken one time. But anyway, this is where staying disciplined comes into handy. And if you can stay disciplined, then you can start getting into some other things that are maybe a little more risky, but you're disciplined. Like credit cards, for example. Credit cards, they'll get you. They'll get you. You got to be careful. But did you know that if you pay the credit card off in full every month, you don't actually pay interest? If you pay it off in full, that's the catch. If. But when you overspend, now you're not paying it off in full and you're paying whatever the interest rate is, 20% more for your Buffalo Wild Wings that you wanted. Anyway, that's the importance of staying disciplined. Or Chick-fil-A. That's what you got a fun money account for. There you go. Good job, Spence. But I do think ultimately the more disciplined you are with this method, or maybe you take this method and you morph it for how it works for you. That's how I figured it out. Like, I read a Dave Ramsey book. I was like, hey, this is some really good stuff, but I think I can do it a little bit different. This budget sheet is not going to be a one size fits all. Like, you can take it, you can morph it however you want to morph it, however it makes sense for you. But I think when you stay organized and you stay disciplined with your finances, you're going to find financial freedom in that. And with that, you're going to start finding more opportunities that you can help people financially. Me and my wife, we actually have something set up that we put into every month called the personal tithe. And this isn't money that we're just going to pay ourselves, which that doesn't even make sense. But it's money that we set aside so that if I'm at a gas station and someone's like, hey, I ran out of money, can you fill my tank up? I can be like, yeah, I got you. Because I know how much money is in my personal tithe account. Or maybe I want to buy lunch for somebody, or somebody has a kid and we want to get them something. Like, we set money aside to help people when they need to be helped. I mean, you talk about a ministry avenue. And it comes from us simply just being disciplined with our finances. There's one big thing I want to talk to you guys about, and that's tithing. I know Josh hit on it a little bit. So what about tithing with all this stuff? Now, we budget for tithing. If you look at Deuteronomy chapter 14, verse 22, it says, you shall truly tithe all the increase of your grain that the field produces year by year. Now, as I said earlier, in the Old Testament times, your currency was the crops that you grew. It was the livestock that you took care of and that you bred, and like you sheared sheep and stuff. Like, that was your currency. So that's why it says the increase of your grain and stuff like that. Like, you want to tithe 10% of that. And fun fact, the word tithe actually means like 10%. Like, that's what it means. So a lot of people are like, why does it, like, where does it say 10%? Like, literally everywhere it says tithe. Like, that's what the word is. But for me, like, number one, the Bible calls us to do it. The Bible calls us to give that 10% back to God. But number two, it's this huge trust thing for me. Because money in our society is such a necessity. It's a thing that I need to help keep food on the table for my kids and for my wife. I mean, even for myself. Like, it's how we have fun. It's how we relax. Like, you need money and finances to do a lot of these things. Like, if you want to take a vacation, you need money to buy food. And so for me, it's like I'm giving away 10% of that. 10% of this huge necessity that I have in my life, I'm giving it back to God. Now, my wife and I know this is going to sound a little biased, we give to Park Valley. I work here. I love it here. And I have seen us do some real good for people. Like, beyond just sitting down and be like, have you tried praying about it? Like, we have actually helped people, even when it comes financially. Now, I don't know all the ins and outs. Brett probably sees everything because he's our finance director. It's only a matter of time before I started working Brett into my message a little bit more. But I've seen it happen. I've seen the receipts from time to time. Maybe I shouldn't have seen some of them, but I've seen it was like, man, we really helped somebody out financially because they needed it. So, like, I just know I can guarantee you that if you tithe your money here, it gets put to good use. It's protected hard. It is. It's not like I have to justify every receipt that comes in. Like, I can't just go buy a motorcycle on my credit card and be like, oh, I don't know what that $10,000 purchase was. Like, no, I have to, like, have a reason for it. I have to categorize it into an account. Like, it is it's very good. It is very strict and very regulated because we are trying to do the best we can with the money that is given to us. And there is no other organization for us. Some churches, they have a hierarchy, like if you ever heard of like the Southern Baptist Convention or things like that. We're not a part of anything like that. We're independent. Everything that you see in this auditorium, everything, the buildings that we have, all the things that we have, this microphone that I'm holding in my hand, we have these things because people tithed. And we wouldn't have these things if we were loose with that money because people would lose trust. Or if they saw us not respecting the things that we've bought. So the way we view money at Park Valley is that, one, this is money that people have worked hard for, and they're trusting us with this. We owe it to them to do the best that we can possibly do with this money. And number two, this equipment, the money that we get, it all belongs to God. It is not ours. So we have an obligation to take this money and use it to tell as many people as we possibly can about Jesus. And when your organization grows and it gets bigger, it incurs more expenses. We got to keep the lights on. You know, if you enjoy worship, we got to be able to get the things to do that. You know, so I'm not saying you have to tithe here. What I'm saying is I want you to give 10% of your money back to God. I just know of a good place that you can do that. I know some of you might be a part of other churches or things like that. Like, take that 10% and give it to an organization that is going to be telling people about Jesus. That's my opinion on that. I'm obviously not going to tell you guys where to put your 10%, but that's my opinion. I would just really look at what organizations are telling people about Jesus and give it to that organization. So, anyway, if you're here tonight and you don't know Jesus, I mean, everything starts with a relationship with him, you know? It's like we can try and be as good as we want to be with our finances or in school or at our job or any of those things, but really, it's all through a relationship with Christ. And the best way I know how to explain like being in a relationship with Jesus is it's not that like your life magically gets better. You know, if you go back to John 10:10, he says like he gives you life abundantly. It's not like you enter into a relationship with Jesus and all of a sudden all your finances are taken care of or all your problems disappear. Or that life never gets hard again. But the way I've always visualized it, and this is maybe a weird visualization, is that when you're not in a relationship with Jesus, it's like you're in a monster truck sitting in the passenger seat, and you're flying down a hill, and there's nobody in the driver's seat. You're just holding on for dear life. You don't know what you're going to hit. You don't know what you're going to run into. It's very uncontrolled. It's chaotic. But if you're in a relationship with Jesus, it's like being on a roller coaster. You're strapped in. the wheels of that cart are connected to that track. That cart's not flying off the track. So you still have the ups and downs, the twists, the turns, the loop-de-loops of life. But you will never fly off of the track because Christ is holding you there. So if you're here tonight and you want to enter in a relationship with Jesus, I heard there's a Toby Mac song, which I always call him the great theologian Toby Mac. One of my professors at Liberty laughed at me. I don't know why. But he said, "You gave me the stars, but you put them out of my reach." And I've always loved that line. And that song's probably like a few years old. You know what I'm saying? But he said, "You gave me the stars and you put them out of my reach." And I started thinking about that. I was like, it does feel like that sometimes. Why? And I think it's because we were designed to be in a relationship with Jesus. We were not designed to be able to reach those stars on our own will and our own power. We were designed to be able to get to that point in a relationship with Jesus. And you go back to John 10:10, I came to give you life abundantly, but you're not going to get an abundant life outside of Jesus. You're going to get it inside of Jesus. I mean, how many people do you know that maybe are wealthy and have a good chunk of change, but they're sad and they're not happy? It's because your true joy and your true happiness comes from Jesus. It doesn't come from things. So if you're here tonight and you want to enter that relationship with Jesus, you want to close your eyes and bow your heads, you can pray something like this. You can say, "God, I know I messed up. I know I'm a sinner. I know I haven't put you first in every aspect of my life. But Father, tonight, I just want to accept what your son did on the cross for me. And I invite you into my life. Father, I pray that you just take my sin and you just wash it away." And real quick, if you prayed that, I just want you to stick your hand up real fast. And you stick it right back down. Sweet. Let me pray for us. Father, thank you for today, for tonight, just this group of people being willing to sit here and to talk about this and to talk about finances, which is maybe a little more on the dry side. But God, I pray that not just in finances, but in everything that we do, we can put you first and we just do the best that we can possibly do. And God, I pray that that opens up conversations for us to talk about you to other people in a natural way. And Father, I pray for everybody out there who's, if somebody feels like they're struggling with money or they just can't see the other end of where all of this finance stuff is going, they feel like there's no hope, God, that they can reach out and that they talk to somebody about it. And God, I pray that all of us, whatever it is that we're struggling with, that we have the courage to reach out to somebody and chat with them. So I pray for all this in your name. Amen.